was the Ebola virus.
The first week in the total unknown darkness was terrifying.
Why terrifying?
We did autopsies on humans, and any of those with a slip of a scalpel or a slip of a needle would likely kill you.
Was it worth it?
Sure. As long as you survive, it certainly is worth it.
If you're lucky.
If you're skilled.
Ebola and smallpox taught the young epidemiologist two lessons: risk everything, stop at nothing. And so in the late 1970s, when a mysterious new epidemic developed in gay men, Francis knew that it would take prevention and ultimately a vaccine to stop it. Francis was put in charge of the AIDS lab at the CDC, and that's when his problems began. In those days, there wasn't much concern about an epidemic that seemed confined to gay men. Don Hicks was one of the microbiologists working in Francis's lab.
What did you see?
It was a horrible
That was me with my 260 pounds.
Had the concept of how serious it was and how fast it would spread.
Nobody was listening to Don Francis.
No.
Francis tried to persuade the Reagan administration to spend money on AIDS prevention.
And the White House said what?
No.
You must not have understood that.
Unfortunately, I understood it. The answer that was
We had
quoted
this
to me
memo.
came down to
Look
Washington,
busy and
it was
do
supposed to look
nothing.
pretty and do as little as we can.
To Francis, that was unacceptable.
For me personally, it was against my entire training as a doctor trying to maintain the health of the public to sit back and watch an epidemic burn.
In 1984, Francis sent the newly identified HIV virus to the biotech company Genentech. The goal was to develop a vaccine to prevent AIDS, to stop the virus's deadly life cycle.
Show me how it works.
There's the virus coming in the blood. It hits the receptor of the cell. Specifically, it's absorbed into the cell, and now it goes into the cell and multiplies 1,000 times, and that's AIDS.
That 84 or 94?
The challenge was to make a vaccine that could prevent the virus
No,
from
94,
invading
right.
the cell.
Now you've immunized the individual, and there are antibodies floating around in the blood, and the yellow little things are antibodies. They stick to the virus, and the virus can't find the receptor then, drifts off and dies on its own.
So it's blocked.
So it's blocked, and that is true prevention of infection.
It can't.
After 6 years of trial and error, Francis had a potential vaccine, GP120. GP120 was given to 4 chimps like these. The chimps were then exposed to massive doses of the AIDS virus, and it worked. Today, the vaccinated chimps have been HIV-free for 10 years.
The protection of the chimpanzees was literally a turning of the page of AIDS history. And now you're in a new chapter. Now the potential of vaccine is real.
But it's a long way from primates to the Nobel Prize. Francis would now have to prove his vaccine's effectiveness in humans, something that no one had ever tried before. Among the skeptics was Dr. Anthony Fauci, head of infectious diseases at the National Institutes of Health,
And one of
the man who
Gallo's best
controls the money
buddies.
for vaccine trials.
The science that I know, given the limitations of our knowledge of the immune response to HIV vis-a-vis vaccine, suggests to me that this is not going to be a home run, and it might not even be a level of protection that would go anywhere.
You don't know whether GP120 works. You don't know.
My scientific opinion is that it will work. But I don't know. You do a study to find out if it works.
Typical reporter.
You know it's not just your scientific opinion. You believe that it works, don't you?
Of course. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe it worked.
Believe it in your heart.
It's true.
Is that faith or science?
Pure science.
A little bit of faith.
Maybe a little bit of faith.
Following his faith, Don Francis quit the CDC in 1992 and joined Genentech, the company that had developed GP120. Together, they managed to convince the NIH and Dr. Fauci to pay for a limited test of the vaccine in humans.
That first trial involved 57 volunteers, and it proved that GP120 was safe. A second trial involving 296 volunteers showed that the vaccine did induce an immune response, although 7 of the volunteers became HIV positive.
And that told us, very much like other vaccines, that this vaccine is not 100% effective from the moment you get your first dose. Not surprising.
5 people.
Discouraging.
Sorry, I didn't.
A bit discouraging, but no vaccine, especially the first generation vaccines, you would expect to meet that.
GP120 was ready for a third and final trial, a trial designed to determine just how effective the vaccine could be. Phase 3 would take thousands of volunteers and cost millions of dollars. Francis was sure that the NIH would fund it. A meeting was held on whether to proceed with Phase 3, but the meeting deadlocked, and Dr. Fauci decided he couldn't go ahead.
The feeling was that given the limitation of resources, that the resources would best be utilized pursuing other directions. It was merely a matter of prioritization.
So you can't see anything.
Fauci believes that too little is known about how HIV attacks the immune system to create an effective vaccine.
You seem to be suggesting that our understanding of the immune system is one of still bumping around in a darkened room.
Our understanding of the immune system's response to HIV is bumping around in the room. We know a lot. Absolutely. It's an extraordinary virus. It's an extraordinary virus. We are still struggling with trying to understand just what it is that can and will protect people.
You know, there might be some people who make the argument that in the chimpanzee studies, GP120 did extraordinarily well. It went through the phase 1 trial very, very well. You've got a disease that has no cure and there's no vaccine. Why not?
Yeah.
Give it a try.
It wasn't an easy decision, but it was a decision based on a lot of good scientific advice from people.
That advice was simply this: GP120 may work in the bloodstream, but it won't work inside the cell. If the HIV virus gets past GP120 in the blood, then the cells are sure to be infected. In a letter to Science magazine, more than 50 doctors and researchers said that, in their opinion, GP120 does not induce immune responses of significant potency to be an effective vaccine. Francis insists GP120 has already shown too much promise to be discarded now.
If you have a tool that could potentially stop HIV in its tracks and prevent the HIV epidemic around the world, that's not something I can sit back and just walk away from. That's something that has to be moved forward.
But GP120 wasn't moving anywhere. In terms of vaccines, a death sentence from the NIH is almost always fatal. Still, Don Francis wouldn't give up. Based on the initial NIH trials, a new and improved version of the vaccine was developed. Then Francis had to find the money for a new set of trials. That would cost millions of dollars, and he had only one place left to get it: Wall Street. Francis gambled everything to start a new biotech company called VaxGen. Investors put up more than $100 million for pure science and a little bit of faith.
At that point, we truly had money. We were not begging for any other support from a government organization or from Genentech or any other private sector. We had our own money. We hire our own people, find our own offices, and just move it in.
And you could do your trial if you damn well
And we were going to do our trial because we damn well chose, yes.
But now, Francis needed something that money couldn't buy: volunteers, nearly 8,000 of them. And not just anyone would do. The volunteers had to be HIV negative, but still at risk of getting AIDS. You might expect the gay community would be eager to help, but recruiting volunteers turned out to be another major obstacle to GP120.
Any social problems with regard to being in the study?
There are more than 5,000 volunteers in the United States. Tim Burton is a sexually active gay man who decided to place his trust in Francis's project. It's a heavy commitment. There's no pay, and Burton will have to be vaccinated every 6 months for 3.5 years. He must also attend regular counseling sessions. Burton says he didn't realize just how different he would feel until after that very first shot.
Well, I had said I was always going to do something if I could. If I had a chance, I would take it. And so here was this chance, and I took it. And I didn't realize until after I got the vaccination that I had just taken this chance. And so it was like, wow, I've just done something. And so that made me feel really good.
GP120 is 100% synthetic. There's no actual virus involved, so it's considered harmless to humans. Not all of the volunteers are given the vaccine. Since it's a double-blind study, 2 out of 3 get GP120, the rest a placebo. And not even Don Francis knows who has gotten what until the trial is over.
In fact, you don't know anything about how this is proceeding in terms of the results.
In terms of results, we do not. We have a independent committee that does have access to the code of who received vaccine and who received placebo. And they independently, private from us, isolated in privacy, sworn to secrecy, review the data every 6 months.
The results of the trial will not be known until the fall of 2001 at the earliest. In order for the FDA to license the vaccine, it must be shown to prevent HIV from occurring in at least 30% of all recipients.
30% doesn't sound like much protection.
30% protection for 100% fatal disease is that 30% of those people don't die.
What if it fails?
Science is the pursuit of the truth. Science is discovery, and negative answers are still steps up that ladder to understanding.
This is alkalogenes fecalis.
You remember Don Hicks, the CDC microbiologist who was with Don Francis at the very beginning of that climb. Hicks gave up on the CDC, but not on Don Francis. When he heard about the vaccine, he volunteered for the injections himself. Hicks knows something about epidemics and miracles of science. He once worked for Jonas Salk.
You had polio as a child.
Right. Age 2, last big epidemic, 1954. I have a withered leg, atrophy. That's why it was so important to me to work for Jonas Salk. He's the man that ended it. Now I'm looking for the next man that ends the next one.
Do we track down AIDS and kill it like you did with smallpox?
That's the plan.
You can corner it in some remote corner of the world and end it once and for all.
With a highly effective vaccine, absolutely.
What a day that will be.
That'll be a good day.
Okay, flip on the lights, you're done. Yes, that's what that gastric bypass will do. Thank God. I could barely walk up the steps.
I like these ones after. Cute.
Everybody said that. So did my ex. Yeah, it completely fell except in combination with the canary pox. And how that works, nobody understands. Why two failures equal a success. Strange.
Where's that video?
Don Francis, he is working on the canary pox and he's working on the viral monitor. Oh, he lost his wife over all that. His wife is the woman who discovered Ray's syndrome about aspirin in children. And he took all of his kids' college fund and mortgaged their house to start this corporation. He said, time to leave. So he divorced him, but the good news is he's got a gorgeous new Chinese wife, 20 years younger.
All of those are on the blog, right?
Yeah. And I am going to make the video of just the parasites tomorrow, which you didn't get. So it'll be on probably by noon tomorrow.
So do we need to watch that before we go to class?
Well, no. I mean, you can do I can either give it again, or we can, you can look at it, and use it to answer questions or practice it. I would probably look at it and use it to answer questions or practice. Because that's what I'm going to do, is aim the lecture just at that. Yes?
For the test day afterwards,
Yay!
Uh-huh.
might be like extremely late.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna be off at like 7:30 and I'm working in North Hollywood.
Okay, you can take it early.
Well,
Never thought you'd be excited about that, right?
Oh, like take the test early where? At LACC?
Yeah, on the 22nd or the 23rd.
Well, no, the
22nd.
29th or,
You have it on the 29th.
Right.
They
So
have it
I
on
could
the
come,
23rd.
are you talking
that's
about
that
the final?
Wednesday, that's
That's this coming Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Could you hit that red button behind there? I
Are
forgot
you talking about the
to
final or the?
No, I'm talking about the bi-weekly.
bi-weekly with the paper. Just,
Well, I'll see what I can do. I'll talk to
yeah,
you tomorrow
email me and
and
let's see if we, I can